The Adventure of the Three Gables. None of my adventures with Mr. Sherlock Holmes had ever begun as suddenly and dramatically as the one I call the Three-Gabled House. I hadn't seen Holmes for a few days and had no idea about the new area of interest he had taken up. Anyway, that morning he was quite talkative, having seated me in a worn-out low chair by the fireplace while he sat opposite me, pipe in his mouth. Then a visitor arrived. If I say a raging bull came in, it would more accurately reflect the scene. The door swung wide open and a huge black man stormed into the room. If it weren't for the terrifying expression on his face, with his gray, plaid jacket and swirling salmon-colored tie, he could have looked like a comic book character. His broad face and flat nose immediately caught the eye, and with the smoldering gleam of anger in his dark eyes, he looked from Holmes to me. "Gentlemen, which one of you is Mr. Holmes?" he asked. Holmes raised his pipe hand slightly and smiled reluctantly. "Ah, so it's you," the man said, roughly, stepping slowly toward the edge of the table. "Listen to me, Mr. Holmes. You need to stay out of people's business. Let everyone mind their own affairs. Do you understand, Mr. Holmes?" "Go on," said Holmes. "You're doing very well." "Ah, it's going well, is it?" the wild man growled. "Damn it, if I trim and cut you a little, things won't be going so well. I've dealt with people like you before, and they didn't look so good when I was done with them. Look here, Mr. Holmes." He clenched his massive fist and thrust it toward my friend's nose. Holmes studied the fist as if examining it carefully and then asked, "Were you born this way, or did you develop into this over time?" Whether it was my friend's icy demeanor or the noise I made while grabbing the fireplace poker, I'm not sure, but our visitor's rage seemed to subside a little. "I'm warning you," he said. "I've got a friend involved with Harrow. You know what I mean, don't you? You're not the law, and I'm not a lawman either. If you come, you'll find me waiting for you. Don't forget that." "I've been meaning to see you too," said Holmes. "I won't ask you to sit down because I don't like your smell, but aren't you the boxer Steve Dixie?" "Yeah, that's my name, Mr. Holmes. If you pucker up your lips, I can prove it to you." "No, I don't think you need those lips at all," said Holmes, glancing at the man's deformed lips. "But more to the point, about that young Perkins who was murdered in front of the Holborn bar. Weren't you going?" The black man froze in place, and suddenly his face turned blank. "I don't want to hear any more of this," he said. "What could I possibly have to do with this Perkins, Mr. Holmes? When that boy got into trouble, I was in Birmingham training at bull ring." "Yes, you can tell that to the judges, Steve," said Holmes. "I've been following you and Barney Stockdale. God help me, Mr. Holmes, ... That's enough. Now get out of here. I'll find you when I need you." "Good day, Mr. Holmes. I hope you don't have any bad thoughts about this visit. If you don't tell me who sent you here, I just might." "I won't hide it from you, Mr. Holmes. The man you just mentioned sent me." "And who put him up to it?" "I swear, I don't know, Mr. Holmes. He just said, 'Steve, go to Mr. Holmes and tell him that if he crosses Harrow's path, his life will be in danger.' I'm telling the truth." Without waiting for any more questions, our visitor hurried out the door just as clumsily as he had entered. Holmes, smiling, quietly tapped the ashes out of his pipe. "Thank goodness he left before you could crack his curly head open. I noticed what you were doing with that fireplace poker, but he's harmless. A muscle-bound fool, a loud-mouthed bully who's easily handled, and as you can see, he's just one of Spencer, John's gang. He's been mixed up in some shady business lately. I'll get to the bottom of it when I have time. The one above him, Barney, is a sharper mind. They specialize in intimidation, threats, and the like. What I want to know is who's really behind all of this. But why are they trying to intimidate you? It's this Harrow Weald matter. After this incident, I've decided to look into the case. If someone is willing to take such risks, then there's something bigger at play." "But what could it be?" "If that amusing incident hadn't happened, I was just about to explain. It's a note from Mrs. Maberly. If you want to come with me, we can go and have a look. Dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, some strange events have occurred regarding this house, and your advice on the matter is very important to me. You can find me at home, at any time tomorrow. The house is a short walk. From Weald Station. I believe my former husband, Mortimer Maberly, was once one of your clients. Sincerely, Mary Maberly. The address on the note was Three Gabled House, Harrow Weald. That's the situation, said Holmes. If you have the time, let's go. A short train ride and an even shorter carriage. Ride brought us to the front of the house. It stood on an uncultivated meadow, a villa of brick, and timber on its own grounds. Above the windows, 3 small gables, rather inadequate. In justifying the house's name, jutted out. The trees behind it presented a melancholic scene. Half-grown pine trees, and the whole atmosphere smelled of poverty and gloom. However, the furniture inside was quite good, and we were welcomed in by a cultured, elegant, elderly lady. "I remember your husband very well, madam," said Holmes. "He sought my help on a couple of small matters several years ago. Perhaps my son Douglas's name might be more familiar to you." Holmes looked at her with great interest. "Oh, yes. Are you Douglas Maberly's mother?" I knew him a little, but of course all of London knew him. What an extraordinary man! Where is he now? "He passed away, Mr. Holmes. He passed away. He was an attaché in Rome, caught pneumonia last month and died there." "I'm very sorry to hear that. It's hard. To imagine someone like him could die. I've never met anyone so full of life. He lived every moment to the fullest." "He certainly did, Mr. Holmes, and it destroyed him. You remember him as graceful and brilliant, but you didn't see how he turned into a grumpy, sullen, and obsessed creature. His heart was broken. I watched in shock as my once spirited son became a bitter man in the span of a month. Was it love? A woman. Maybe a demon, but I didn't call you here to talk about my poor son, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson and I are at your service, madam. Strange things have been happening here. I've been living in this house for over a year, trying to lead a somewhat reclusive retired life, interacting with very few neighbors. 3 days ago, a man who claimed to be a real estate agent approached me. He said this house would be perfect for one of his clients and that he would offer me whatever price I asked if I moved out. There are other empty houses in the area with similar features, yet he insisted on this one, which I found odd, but naturally I was interested in the offer. I even asked for £500 more than what I paid for the house. He accepted without haggling and said his client wanted to buy the house with the furniture included. He asked me to include the furniture in the price as well. Some of my furniture comes from my old home and, as you can see, is in very good condition, so I named a high price. He agreed to that, too. I've always dreamed of traveling, and the deal seemed so good that I wouldn't have to worry for the rest of my life. Yesterday, the man came with a prepared contract. Thank God I showed it to my lawyer, Mr. Sutro, who lives in Harrow. He told me, "This is a very strange document. Are you aware that if you sign this, you won't be able to take anything from the house, not even your personal belongings?" When the man came in the evening, I brought this up and told him I had only priced the furniture, not the house itself along with everything inside. No, everything," he said. "But what about my clothes, my jewelry?" "Well, we can make some exceptions for certain personal items, but nothing will leave the house without being checked. My client is quite liberal, but he has his whims, and he has a very particular way of doing business. He always operates on an all-or-nothing basis." "Then he will get nothing," I said, and the matter ended there. But all of these events have seemed so strange to me. At this very moment, Holmes raised his hands and unusually interrupted the lady's speech. He walked slowly, opened the door, and pulled in a thin woman standing behind it by her shoulder. The woman, squawking like a large chicken, pulled out of a coop, stumbled into the room. "Let go of me. What are you doing?" "What is going on, Susan? What is this?" "Ma'am, I was just coming to ask if your guests would be staying for lunch when this man jumped on me. I've been hearing this lady's breath behind the door for 5 minutes now, but I didn't want to interrupt your interesting story. Eavesdropping with such raspy breathing can be quite difficult, Susan." Susan looked at Holmes, who had caught her, with a mixture of resentment and bewilderment. "Whatever it is, who do you think you are, pulling me like that?" "I just wanted to ask a question. While you were here, Mrs. Maberly, did you mention to anyone that you would consult me in writing?" "No, Mr. Holmes, I didn't. Who did you give the letter to send?" "To Susan." "Exactly. So, Susan, to whom did you inform that the lady was seeking my help?" "This is slander. I didn't tell anyone." "Well, Susan, you know, people with wheezy breath don't live long. Lying is also a terrible thing. Who did you tell? Come on, tell us." "Susan," cried the lady, "I knew you were unreliable and a bad woman. Now I remember you were talking to someone in front of the garden." "That was my private business," the woman said sullenly. "If I were to say that the person you were talking to was Barney Stockdale," said Holmes. "Well, if you know, why are you asking?" "I wasn't sure, but now I am." "All right, Susan, if you tell us who's behind. Barney, I'll give you £10. Someone who could put down £1,000 for every 10 of yours. Looks like a rich man." "No, you smiled, so it's a rich woman. Now that you've come this far, why don't you tell us her name and take the 10? Go to hell." "Susan, mind your tongue. I'm leaving. I've had enough of all of you. I'll send someone to pick up my things tomorrow," she said, heading toward the door. "Goodbye, Susan. Maybe you'll calm down once you've collected your things." After she stormed out and closed the door behind her, Holmes suddenly turned serious and continued, "Now, they're taking this gang business quite seriously. See, they're playing the game from the inside. Your letter is marked as sent at 10 in the evening. By this time, Susan has informed Barney. Barney has enough time to go to his boss and receive instructions on the matter. The man, or woman, now we know from Susan's smirk that it's a woman, devises the plan. Black Steve is given the task, and by 11 the next morning, he comes and threatens me. Quite a fast operation, don't you think? But what do they want? Yes, that's the main question. Who owned this house before you?" "A retired sea captain named Ferguson." "What can you tell me about him?" "I've never heard anything noteworthy about him. I wonder, could he have buried something somewhere? Of course, nowadays when people want to bury their treasures, they do it in banks. But it's still possible to come across crazy people. Without them, the world would be too monotonous. Initially, I thought there might be something valuable buried in the house, but then, why would? They also want your furniture? Could there be a Raphael painting or a Shakespeare manuscript in your possession without you knowing?" "No, I have no antiques, other than my royal tea set." "That doesn't explain all of this. Also, why aren't they openly stating what they want? If they were after your tea set, they'd simply offer a price for it, not try to buy everything from top to bottom. No, from what I understand, there's something here that even you are unaware of, and if you knew, you likely wouldn't want to sell it." "I think so too," I said. "Since Dr. Watson agrees, we must be on the right track." "Well, Mr. Holmes, what do you think it could be?" "Let's see if pure mental analysis can get us further. You've been living in this house for a year, nearly 2 years. All right, let's say 2. In all that time, no one has asked you for anything. Now suddenly, within these 3 or 4 days, they've come with urgent demands. What does that suggest to you?" "It can only mean one thing," it said. "Whatever they're after, it's only recently come into the house." "Spot on once again," said Holmes. "Well, Mrs. Maberly, has anything new come into the house recently?" "No, I haven't brought anything new into the house this year." "Really? That's quite interesting. Well, until we have clearer information, I think it's best to let things run their course. Is your lawyer competent?" "Mr. Sutro is very capable. Do you have any other servants, or was Susan the only one who just stormed out?" "I have a young girl as well." "Convince Mr. Sutro to spend a night or 2 here. You may need protection." "But from whom?" "Who knows? The situation is quite mysterious as it stands. If we can't figure out what they're after, we might need to approach the Matter from another angle. Did the estate agent give you an address? He gave me a simple business card with professional details, Haynes Johnson, auctioneer and appraiser. I doubt we'll find him in the directory. Honest, businessmen don't conceal their business. Addresses? Well, if anything new comes up, let me know. I'm taking on this case. Don't worry, I will help you. As we walked down the corridor, Holmes, who never missed a detail, focused intently on a few crates piled. Up in the corner, they bore labels, Milan, Lucerne. These are from Italy. Those are my poor Douglas's belongings. You haven't unpacked them yet? How long have they been here? They arrived last week. But you said, you must not have. Thought of these when you mentioned. Nothing new coming into the house. How do we know there's nothing valuable inside? There can't be anything valuable, Mr. Holmes. Poor Douglas only had his salary, and a small allowance. What valuable items could he have possibly had? Holmes fell into deep thought. Don't waste any time at Mrs. Maberly, he finally said. Move these belongings upstairs to your bedroom immediately, and inspect what's inside without delay. I'll hear from you when I return tomorrow. It was quite clear that Three Gables was being watched. At the top of the narrow street, in the shadows, our prizefighter was lying. In wait, we were quietly approaching the terrifying and menacing figure lurking in the corner. Holmes reached into his pocket. Are you looking for your weapon, Mr. Holmes? No, I was looking for my perfume bottle, Steve. Very funny, Mr. Holmes, aren't you? It may not be so amusing for you if I decide to. Come after you, Steve. I warned you this morning. Mr. Holmes, I've thought over everything you said. I don't want to talk about Mr. Perkins anymore. Maybe I can help you, Mr. Holmes, and I will. All right, then. Can you tell me who's behind all this? God knows, Mr. Holmes, I already told you the truth. I don't know. I just take orders from my boss, Barney, that's all. Very well, Steve. Just remember, the lady in that house and everything under this roof is under my protection. Don't forget that. All right, Mr. Holmes, I won't forget. After what I said to him, he's definitely worried about his own skin, Watson, Holmes said as we walked. If he knew who it was, he would have double-crossed his boss and told us, I'm sure. Luckily, I've got a little knowledge about the Spencer John gang, and Steve used to be one of them. Watson, this case is right up Langdale Pike's alley. I'm going to see him now. When I get back, things will be a bit clearer in my mind. I didn't see Holmes for the rest of the day, but I could imagine how he spent it. To him, Langdale Pike was like a personal encyclopedia of social scandals. This peculiar and cold-blooded creature spent his waking hours at a club window on St. James Street. He acted like both a receiver and transmitter of all the city's gossip. It was rumored that he made a four-figure income by supplying juicy tidbits to lowbrow papers that catered to the public's curiosity. Whenever something stirred in the murky depths of London society, this human antenna would detect it with uncanny precision. Holmes often fed him information under the table and in return received useful details when needed. The next morning, when I met Holmes in his room, I could tell from his posture that his meetings had gone well. However, we were in for an unpleasant surprise. A telegram arrived. Please come immediately. My client's house was robbed last night. The police are investigating. Sutro. Holmes whistled. The drama has turned to tragedy, Watson, and faster than I expected. There's a powerful force behind this. After what I've learned, I'm not surprised. I don't question Sutro's legal skills, but I regret not asking you to stand guard last night. Trusting him was a mistake, but there's no point dwelling on it now. We must head back to Harrow Weald. The Three Gables looked very different from the day before. A small crowd had gathered at the garden gate, and several police officers were inspecting the windows and searching among the geraniums. Inside, we met an elderly gentleman with gray hair. He introduced himself as the lawyer, standing beside a cheerful, rosy-cheeked inspector who shook hands with Holmes as if they were old friends. Well, Mr. Holmes, I'm afraid you won't have much luck with this one. It's just an ordinary burglary, right up the police's alley. No need for expert intervention. I'm sure the case is in good hands, Holmes replied, but you say it's Just a simple burglary? Exactly. We know who did it and where to. Find them. It's Barney Stockdale's gang, and that big black guy was with them. They've been spotted around here. Splendid. What did they take? Doesn't seem like much. They knocked out Miss Maberly with ether, and the house. Ah, here's the lady herself. Miss Maberly, pale and looking ill, leaned on her maid as she entered the room. You gave me good advice, Mr. Holmes, she said with a regretful smile. But I didn't. Take it. I didn't want to trouble Mr. Sutro, so I was here all alone and unprotected. I found out this morning, the lawyer added. Mr. Holmes advised me to have someone stay with me, but I ignored him, and now I've paid the price. You look exhausted and unwell, Holmes remarked. It may be difficult for you to recount what happened. Everything is here, the inspector said, holding up his thick notebook. Still, if the lady feels up to it. There's very little to say, Miss Maberly responded. I'm sure that traitor Susan helped them get inside. They knew the layout of the house perfectly when they pressed the ether. To my mouth, I was conscious for just a moment before blacking out. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke, one of them was standing by the bed, and the other was rifling through my son's belongings, pulling out a package. The wrapping had come loose, and some of the contents had spilled onto the floor. I grabbed for it before they could run. You took quite a risk, the inspector commented, and I held on tightly, but one of them shoved me, and perhaps the other hit me. I don't remember. After that, my maid Mary heard the commotion, opened the window, and began shouting. The police arrived, but those scoundrels had already escaped. What did they take? I don't believe anything. Valuable is missing. There was nothing of value among my son's belongings. Did the men leave any clues behind? Only a piece of paper, I believe. I grabbed it from the man I caught. It was crumpled on the floor. It's written in my son's handwriting. So, it wasn't something useful to them, said the inspector. If it were, the thieves would have taken it. Perhaps, Holmes interjected. It's common sense. Nevertheless, I'd like to see it. The inspector pulled out a folded piece of paper from the notes in his pocket. Notebook. No matter how trivial, I never overlook anything, he said with a smug expression. Let me give you some advice, Mr. Holmes. After 25 years of experience, I've learned my lesson well. There's always a fingerprint or another clue. Holmes examined the paper. What do you make of this, Inspector? From what I can see, it looks like the ending of a strange novel. It's definitely the conclusion of an odd tale, Holmes replied. Did you notice the number at the top of the page? It says 245. Now, where are the other 244 pages? I suppose the thieves took the rest. It must have been something useful to them. Isn't it strange, though, that they would break into the house and steal? This? Does this mean anything to you, Inspector? Yes, sir. I believe the thieves grabbed whatever they could in the chaos. I wish them good luck with whatever they took, he said with a grin. Mrs. Maberly then asked, why would they have gone through my son's belongings? Well, they didn't find anything valuable downstairs, so they tried their luck upstairs. I think that's what happened. What do you say, Mr. Holmes? I need to think, Inspector. Watson, Wood, you come to the window? At the window, he handed me the paper and asked me to read it. The writing began in the middle of a sentence and read as follows. His face was slashed and covered in blood from the wounds, but when he saw her beautiful face, the wound in his heart made these injuries seem insignificant, such a face that he would have given his entire life for her. In his pain and shame, he felt it with all his being. The woman smiled. Yes, thank God, she smiled. She smiled at him like a heartless demon. And in that moment, love died and hatred was born. Every man has a purpose in life. If mine will not be to hold you in my arms, my lady, then surely it will be for revenge. Such odd grammar, said Holmes, smiling as he handed the paper back to the inspector. Did you notice how it suddenly switches from he to I? The writer is so overwhelmed by his own fate that he gets swept away and takes the place of his fictional hero. These are utterly useless and nonsensical. Words, the inspector grumbled, placing the paper back in his notebook. What's this, R? You turning into a literary critic, Mr. Holmes? With such skilled officers on this case, there's little for me to do here. By the way, Mrs. Maberly, didn't you say you were considering taking a trip? That has always been my dream, Mr. Holmes. Where would you like to go? Cairo, Madeira, the Riviera? Oh, if I had the money, I'd travel around the world. Quite right, a world tour. Well, good morning, then. I'll arrange something for you by this evening. As we passed by the window, I caught the inspector's glance and a shake of his head. His smile seemed to say, "These clever men always have a touch of madness." "Now, Watson, we're in the final stage of our little journey," Holmes said as we once again blended into the hustle and bustle of central London. "I think it would be best if we brought some clarity to the matter in one swift move. You'd better come with me. After all, it's always safer to have a witness when you're dealing with a lady like Isadora Klein." We hailed a cab and sped towards an address near Grosvenor Square. Holmes was deep in thought and suddenly sat up straight. "By the way, Watson, I assume you now understand everything quite clearly, don't you?" "No, I can't say I do. I only gather that we're on our way to meet the lady behind all this confusion." "Precisely. But does the name Isadora Klein not ring a bell? She was famed for her beauty, unmatched by any woman, a pure Spaniard descended from the great conquistadors. Her family had been leaders in Pernambuco for generations. She married old German sugar magnate Klein, taking his surname, and became the richest and most beautiful widow in the world. For a time, she led a life filled with adventures, indulging in her own pleasures. She had many lovers, and Douglas Maberly one of the most attractive men in London was one of them. It's said their affair was more than just a fling. Douglas wasn't a man of society. He was proud and strong, the kind of man who would live up to any expectations. Isadora was his ruthless and beautiful woman. When her whims were satisfied, the matter was closed. But if she had been promised something and didn't get it, she would stop at nothing to obtain it. So that story belonged to Douglas himself. Ah, now you're starting to put the pieces together. From what I've heard, she's now on the verge of marrying young Duke Lamond. He's nearly young enough to be her son. His Grace's mother may have ignored the age difference, but of course, if a major scandal were to break out, this marriage might become difficult. Ah, here we are. We arrived at one of the finest corner houses in the West End. A butler, behaving like a machine, took our cards and turned us away, saying that the lady was not at home. Holmes, in a cheerful tone, replied, "Then we shall wait until she returns." Suddenly, the machine malfunctioned, and the butler added, "Not at. Home means not at home for you." "Very well," Holmes answered. "In that case, there's no need for us to wait. Kindly give this note to your mistress." He tore a piece of paper from his notebook, scribbled 3 or 4 words on it, folded it, and handed it to the butler. "What did you write on that paper, Holmes?" I asked. "I only wrote, 'Would you like the police to come?' I believe these words will get us inside." We got in, and surprisingly quickly. A minute later, we found ourselves in a room, designed in the style of the Arabian Nights, spacious and magnificent, yet somewhat gloomy, with electric lights randomly placed. The lady of the house arrived. Despite her age, even the most striking beauty would pale in comparison to her. As we entered the room, she rose from the couch, tall, with a regal posture like a queen, her face mask-like in its beauty and too magnificent Spanish eyes that stared at us with a deadly gaze. "What is the meaning of this uninvited visit and this insulting message?" she asked, showing the piece of paper in her hand. "I will not explain that, madam. First, respect your intelligence too much to do so, although your intelligence has been surprisingly prone to errors lately." "What do you mean, sir?" "You thought that your hired thugs would intimidate me into abandoning my case. Surely someone like me wouldn't take on a case unless there was a sense of danger involved. You forced me to investigate the case of young Maberly." "I don't know what you're talking about. What do I have to do with hired thugs?" Holmes pretended to turn his back, as if he were about to leave. "Yes, I overestimated your intelligence. Very well, good day. Wait, where are you going?" "To Scotland Yard." We headed for the door, but halfway there she stepped in front of us, blocking our way. She grabbed Holmes by the shoulder. The steel-like woman had suddenly transformed into velvet. "Come and sit down, gentlemen. Let's discuss this matter thoroughly. I will be honest with you, Mr. Holmes. You seem like a true gentleman, and women can tell these things right. Away, I will treat you as a friend. I cannot guarantee that I will reciprocate. I am not the law, but I represent justice to the best of my ability. I am ready to listen to you, and then I will explain how I will proceed. It was definitely foolish of me to try to scare off a brave man like you. The real foolishness was relying on a gang of thugs who could easily blackmail or betray you, madam. No, I'm not that simple, since I promised. To be honest, I'll tell you. Besides Barney, Stockdale and his wife Susan, no one knew who their employer was. As for them, well, this isn't their first time." She smiled, tilting her head with an enchantingly coquettish expression. "I see. So, you've tested them before. They are like hunting dogs that do their work quietly. But those dogs eventually bite the hand that feeds them. They will be arrested for this theft. The police are on their trail. They will face whatever comes their way. They were paid for it. My name will not come up in this case. Unless I expose you. No, you wouldn't do that. You're too kind, and this is just a woman's secret. First, you must return those handwritten notes you took." With a hearty laugh, she walked over to the fireplace. After smashing a charred lump with the poker, she said, "Is this what you want?" She stood before us, smiling so perfectly and alluringly that, for a moment, I thought she was the most difficult opponent Holmes had ever faced, yet he had built up an immunity to such emotions. "This seals your fate," Holmes said coldly. "You are quite bold in your actions, madam, but in this case you have crossed the line." The woman threw the poker down with a loud crash. "How harsh you are," she cried. "Shall I tell you the whole story?" "I bet I could tell it to you myself. But you must look at the situation from my point of view, Mr. Holmes. See it through the eyes of a woman who has been on the verge of getting what she has desired all her life, only to lose it at the last moment. Why do you blame a woman for trying to protect herself? The fault was yours from the start. Yes, I admit it. Douglas was a charming man, but he didn't fit into my plans. He wanted marriage. Marriage, Mr. Holmes. Could a woman like me, of no wealth or status, marry someone of his social standing? Less than that wouldn't satisfy him. Then he became even more persistent. He wanted more than I was willing to give, and only to him. It became unbearable. In the end, I wanted him to understand that this was wrong. By hiring thugs and ordering them to beat him under your window? It seems you know everything. Well, that's true. Barney and his friends took him away, and I admit they were rough. But what do you think he did? After that, could you imagine a gentleman of his refinement doing such a thing? He wrote a book telling his side of the story, of course. Naturally, I was the villain and he the lamb. Everything was in there, though the names were changed, but who in London wouldn't understand the real story? What do you say to that, Mr. Holmes? Well, he was justified in his way. It was as if Italy had seeped into his blood, filling him with a coarse Italian spirit. He sent me a note and included a copy of his writings, just so I would suffer while waiting for the book to be published. He claimed to have 2 copies, one for himself and one for the publisher. How did you know the other copy hadn't reached the publisher? I knew who his publisher was. This wasn't his first novel, you see. I realized nothing had been sent to the publisher from Italy. Then came Douglas's sudden death. I wasn't safe as long as that second copy existed. It had to be among his belongings, likely sent to his mother. That's why I arranged for the gang. One of them got into the house as a servant. I needed to finish this honestly. First, really did. I was ready to buy the house and everything in it. I would have paid any price the lady wanted. When that failed, I had to resort to other means. Now, Mr. Holmes, forgive me, I was too hard on Douglas, and God knows I regret it. But with my future at stake, what else could I have done? Sherlock Holmes shrugged. Well, he said, I suppose we'll settle this sordid matter differently. Now, how much would it cost for a first-class trip around the world? The lady looked at him in astonishment. Would £5,000 cover it? I think it would. Very well. Write me a check for that amount, so I can give it to Mrs. Maberly. You owe her a change of scenery. And by the way, madam, he added, wagging his finger, be careful. Be very careful. Playing with sharp objects isn't wise. We wouldn't want your delicate hands to get hurt.